welcome to Bury Our Bones with Cinema, the podcast that is always finding new ways to say that we love or hate a movie. Once again, I'm joined by the movie encyclopedia himself, the amazing Gaz Evans. In today's episode, we spend a shift with Riggs and Murtaugh as we dissect Lethal Weapon 2. So join us as we check the exchange rate on some Krugerrands, try and beat Riggs' personal best at escaping a straitjacket, and finally remember to check the toilet paper before we sit down.
This podcast contains spoilers.
Oh, look at how nice that looks.
It's only the Blu-ray version.
Yeah.
I am finding that a lot of the time when you pay for the 4K version, sometimes they're not that much of a step up from the Blu-ray version. And I was quite pleasantly surprised. I have got the 4K of the original.
Yes, yeah, me too.
Which actually does look
God, that
sensational.
Looks incredible. It's this TV, man. I'm so envious of your TV.
It is I spent ages researching, looking, because I didn't want to spend too much.
Yeah.
It's an OLED, so it has that.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a step up from your average 4K, and I was really happy with it when I first got it.
Yeah.
You know, when you just go.
So you use a 4K player or a
So I just
use
the PS5. I have got a 4K player as well, but that's stopped working. So the PS5 became the main system, which, to be fair, does mostly everything you can want, really. So I have to admit, when you said the last time we recorded, shall we do Lethal Weapon 2?
Yeah.
I was like, you know the way to a man's heart, because
fizzy balls moment.
I love the Lethal Weapon franchise.
Oh, great!
Like that, all of the movies are great, and I know a lot of people aren't particularly keen on 4.
I find it very watchable. I'd watch it before Lethal Weapon 3. I think. Are we recording?
We are recording.
Oh, cool. Hello. I just
seamless transition.
Fizzy balls, wasn't I? Sorry.
I watched 3 and 4 yesterday as well as 2.
Yeah.
And I would definitely watch 4 before I watch 3 as well. I think there's more.
3 was kind of edging towards PG-13 sort of territory.
Yeah.
And it felt a bit edgeless. And the action scene, well, actually, there's one or two. The motorbike chase is pretty good. But yeah, it just felt a tiny bit lamer. Although, to be fair, all the stuff about Roger killing Nick's friend who has the gun, that was quite interesting stuff.
Yeah. I mean, there is that scene which did get to me a little bit yesterday with when they're at the funeral of that guy and they've got Boys to Men, It's So Hard to Say Goodbye in the background, and it's like, whew, I wasn't quite ready for this today, you know. But I definitely noticed it is, you know, you get them in all franchises where, you know, they start to think about the direction of where we want to take the movies next. And it definitely felt like ever so slight change of direction where they started to go, let's make it a bit more comedic. Let's make it a little bit more light, I suppose is the word. And as you say, not that there isn't those sort of heartfelt, difficult moments that are in all of the Lethal Weapons. But yeah, I would watch 4 before I watch 3. And for me, that's more of a nostalgic thing. I can remember my dad renting it on video back in the day. And I think I was just getting to the age where it was like, oh yeah, he can watch like these types of films with me now. Usually it was like I'd be watching them in secret. Whereas now it's like, yeah, we can watch that. It's a Saturday afternoon and we stuck Lethal Weapon 4 on and we loved it. So I've always got a soft spot for it, despite I know people not being particularly keen on it and being particularly fond of it. But as a whole franchise, I think there is not a single dud. In
Lethal Weapon 3 is not a dud.
No.
It's just the weakest. Yeah. That's all it is.
And there is going to be that in every franchise, isn't
it? And that, you know, Roger Murtaugh going on a bit of a rampage. You know, Rene Russo coming into it. She's brilliant. There's a lot of value in Lethal Weapon 3. It just is perhaps the weakest. I think people would maybe say that Lethal Weapon 4 just got far too cartoony. Yeah. And just a bit ridiculous. But it's so jam-packed with stuff. I mean, that's the one where they literally drive through a freaking office building, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it really, I mean, yeah, Lethal Weapon 4 is a long way from Lethal Weapon 1, which is the darkest of the lot. Yeah. I mean, What do you think? Lethal Weapon 2 or Lethal Weapon 1 better?
Well, if you'd have asked me before rewatching Lethal Weapon 2, which I have seen a numerous amount of times, as I have the original, I'd have probably said Lethal Weapon 1. But I'm now questioning that decision. Lethal Weapon 2 has that. At the moment, it has that edge for me.
It does. It's got that nice bit of freedom that a middle or a second in a franchise has, like Empire Strikes Back and The Two Towers, where it doesn't have to do any setting up.
Yeah.
The first film has done all the heavy lifting, introduced all the characters, and I mean, from the first second of Lethal Weapon 2, with the kind of that joyous music, it kind of reminds me of the opening of Gremlins 2. Really kind of like a big show is about to start.
Yeah.
And which is another Warner Brothers property, of course. Well, Gremlins 2 isn't actually that far away from Lethal Weapon 2, as it turns out, coincidentally. I think they got the same sort of energy. It's kind of like, it's a solid genre piece, but it's also kind of treads all over a lot of the established rules and stuff. I mean, Gremlins 2 more so. Have you seen that Key and Peele sketch about the boardroom meeting about how they were going to approach making Gremlins 2?
I haven't.
I'll have to send it to you. It's so esoteric.
I do like a bit of Key and Peele, yeah.
But yeah, this one, it starts and it never stops, this film. You're right into it. It's like putting on, some, I don't know, just putting on some comfortable clothes and kind of sitting with a Coke and a bucket of popcorn and just with your mates. And it really is. The first one, Lethal Weapon 1 is really, really good. Of course it is. It's brilliant. But Lethal Weapon 2 just takes the reins and just gets going. It really, really does.
I find that the first Lethal Weapon is a harder watch.
Yeah.
It's some of the subject material is a lot darker.
Yeah.
It was initially going to be even darker than what we got. We did get something that was an amalgamation of two different things. It was a lot lighter than it was initially. And people may be thinking, why are we starting with Lethal Weapon 2? And one of the reasons for that is actually when me and Jim first started the podcast, the third episode we ever recorded was Lethal Weapon, and it's never been released before. And this was back in the days where we were doing it over Zoom calls. So before we decided to get into a room together. So that's never been released. That's why we're doing Lethal Weapon 2. But one of the things that I said with the original is that on the face of it, if you didn't know anything about the franchise, if you didn't know anything about the movies, and you just saw the description and you started watching, you'd think, oh, it's a buddy cop movie. I've seen them a dime a dozen. And we spoke about it, I think, last time we were in a room together, that this wasn't the first buddy cop movie, but it certainly, maybe not necessarily popularized the genre, but certainly set the standard of what you can do with the genre. And one of the reasons for that is that it does deal with those difficult subject matters. You might buy the ticket for the action sequences and the light humour, but for me, the reason I return to it time and time again is, well, to be honest, it's literally there's that scene where he's in, the abandoned shop, Danny Glover and Mel Gibson, and it's just after he's jumped off the top of the building with the guy who was threatening to jump off. And Danny Glover's like, oh yeah, you're doing this for a payday, you're doing this for a pension, do you really want to kill yourself? Is that what's going on? And you see that look in Mel Gibson's eye. That's why I return to it. It's that look.
Yeah.
And it's there, and it's so convincing that you look into his eyes and you go, this guy has got a lot of demons. And one of the things that I think it shrewdly does with the second movie is it doesn't completely forget all of that.
No.
The third act, we get that bit again, the reveal of, which I suppose people could probably say, is that a bit hammy? I don't think it is, with the reveal about the South Africans being responsible for his wife's death.
Yeah.
You could say that was shoehorned in as just a bit of like let's add this layer onto it. Did it need that? I'm not so sure. But for me, why I accept it is because up until that point, we haven't seen that look and that side of Riggs in this movie. We've seen it in the first one, but we haven't seen it here.
Yeah.
And for me, that's why I love Lethal Weapon, because it has that mixture of really light-hearted humour. You know, we're just watching the scene where he's trying to escape the straitjacket, and then we've got him, you know, popping his shoulder out and popping it back in, which is quite, you know, quite funny and hilarious. But then we have those darker subjects where there's a lot of baggage, there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of stuff on both of these characters' minds. You know, one of the main, you know, themes, particularly for Murtaugh, is, you know, he's too old for this shit.
Yeah.
You know, he's all, you know, in the first one,
he was retiring in the first one,
you know,
he was sat in the bath.
You know, it's one of those things where that carries, you know, a lot of the plot points through the four movies.
Yeah, and I mean, I think, you know, perhaps it's a bit of a dichotomy, because, you know, the less dangerous and unhinged that Riggs gets, you could say the more PG-13 the films get, and it loses that edge. Then again, if you look at them as a whole, you know, it's nice to see that they just become family. Riggs with Murtaugh's family is quite beautiful. Oh, what is it? Is it the third one or the fourth one where Riggs says they punch up on the fishing boat, don't they?
I think it's the fourth one.
Yeah. And Riggs says, you know, that Murtaugh's basically his life, and he says, I got 3 beautiful kids, I love them, and they're yours. I love that moment. I really, really do. But yeah, so you got the, you know, it kind of loses its edge as it goes on, but also the closer Riggs and Murtaugh get, and there's a family, the whole lot, it does become much more about family. I mean, I've watched the kind of the making of features for Lethal Weapon 4, and everyone behind the scenes is talking about how it's all about family and that sort of stuff. Kind of like Fast and Furious before Fast and Furious came along. And yeah, so you got that sort of thing going on. I just thought it was funny seeing Dean Norris in this.
Yeah.
And how he looks already in his mid-40s.
Yes.
And although technically he's only in his 20s in this film, his late 20s in this film, he looks... And of course he's in Total Recall at the same sort of time, isn't he?
He's also in Starship Troopers.
Oh, of course, yeah.
And the only reason I mention that is because we've got an episode on that, and I remember him wearing a costume in that, which strangely makes his arms look about 4 times longer. And he's only a short fella.
Yeah.
So any added length to his arms already looks odd, but this time it's utterly ridiculous.
Yeah.
But yeah, go and listen to that Starship Troopers episode for a bit more on that. Yeah, family is the thing that really is the, you know, the heart and soul of these movies. You know, there's that focal point and that anchor in all of the movies. You know, in the first one, it's Riggs is just trying to find his way and find a reason for living. In the second one, it becomes much more, he's placed in that family. You know, even things like where he says, you know, where does what's his name keep my clothes? You know, he's got his own spot in their house for his clothes because he's there so often, you know. And
I remember watching this scene, watching the Lethal Weapons with my dad in general, but this scene is just brilliant with the TV ad. It's a bit implausible because, you know, she's made... So this bit with Rianne and you know, it's her big break, is her... You know, it's a TV advert that she recorded, and it's about condoms.
Yeah.
It's just hilarious. But it's like, this is her big break. She's made this TV advert, and she hasn't, nobody at any point asked her, oh, what's it going to be about?
Yeah.
Is it Subway, Coca-Cola?
Yeah. And what I love about it is that as soon as
I'm watching it now, it's hilarious.
As soon as Riggs is mentioning to everybody in the office, you know, this is Murtaugh's daughter's big break, you just know it's not going to be what Murtaugh thinks it is. It's not going to be Subway. It's not going to be Cola. It's not going to be, you know, family-based adverts. You know, even the lead up to that, you get I really like the line where he says to the possible boyfriend of Rianne, he says, have we met before? I was like, yeah, we had a conversation last week. And he's like, did you get the impression that I liked you? I just think that, you know, I think every guy has had that moment where they're meeting their, their other half's father, and it's that thing of going, how is this going to go? And
I mean, watching Gibson in this scene, he looks like he's genuinely just having the time of his life.
Yeah.
When that line from the workman that made me want to go out and buy rubbers right now. I mean, look at Gibson. I think they're just cracking up. I think that might have been an improvised line, maybe. But the way he says it is just
very
hilarious,
organic, doesn't it?
It does.
Which, if it's not an improvised line, then it's a scripted line, and the delivery and the has made that sound so like they've only just said that for the first time. Yeah, I think one of the things that really comes through in this movie is that feeling that Mel Gibson is having the time of his life.
Yeah.
Like, there are so many moments where you can just see that he's totally comfortable in the character. And not that saying that Glover as Murtaugh isn't, but particularly with Riggs, there is that sheer belief that this is 100%, you're watching Riggs, you're not watching Mel Gibson.
Yeah.
And I mean, their relationship is another anchor that, obviously, if the two lead characters don't quite gel, there isn't chemistry, there isn't that camaraderie that you should get with the buddy cop movie, then the buddy cop movie isn't going to.
Yeah, I think the scene that cements this maybe as even better than the first is the bathroom scene, the bomb in the toilet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant, funny, moving, just tense. I think that, and really says a lot about, their friendship and their partnership, and I think that's where it really kind of becomes. This is a sequel that's got absolutely everything. It's got one of my favorite action sequences ever, with the chase through the canyons with the surfboard. I think that's beautifully edited. And also, just realising here, we got a bit of an Aliens reunion, because we've got Mark Rolston, who's just been shot in the head, and Jeanette Goldstein,
who I am wearing a T-shirt which has Jeanette Goldstein on.
One that I'm going to have to get for myself, I'm afraid.
I will send you the link, but for those, I would say for those who can't see us, nobody can see us, this is an audio platform. But essentially, this is a picture of Jeanette Goldstein as Vasquez from Aliens, but as the Mona Lisa.
Yeah. Wonderful.
And the T-shirt is called the Mona Vasquez. It's perfect. It's a great T-shirt. Yeah, I had, when you sort of forget lots of bits about a movie, I totally forgot that we had Jeanette Goldstein in this. And I was like, that's Vasquez. And Hannah was a bit surprised, because like, she looks nothing like Vasquez. And I was like, no, she really doesn't. And
it's a different ethnicity for a start.
Yeah. It's like in the days where that was acceptable. Yeah, Mark Rolston obviously plays the unfortunate guy who has seemed to have no indication when he's walking onto that plastic flooring. Things might not end well.
This is a wonderful scene as well between Trish and Riggs, the pen, which could easily. I love this scene because obviously, it's a really good little summary of grief. How just the mundanities of everyday life can trigger or remind you of something very, very traumatic. And it could easily be a very that he could be sat down, he could be crying, but I love that it's delivered in this way, that he's just chopping veg, they're just hanging around, and it comes up and he doesn't break down. It's just a lovely, moving little story, and such a wonderful connection between these two characters that, I don't know, maybe someone who didn't have as big a heart as Richard Donner or the skills of Jeffrey Boehm, the screenwriter, wouldn't have bothered with. Or this could have been something between Riggs and Murtaugh. But no, it's just this nice little moment, and they both play it so well. Darlene Love listens very, very nicely. And then Roger walks in, Danny Glover walks in, and, and there's that little coda where, I found a pen, and they just give each other a little glance, don't they, Riggs and Trish?
It's that glint.
And it's just like, this is just between us. You'll understand this. it's wonderfully played. It's so moving. It's a gorgeous little scene, this is.
And it's incredibly real. Like, I think you hit the nail on the head where he could be breaking down, he could be crying. And that would be a perfectly acceptable way of showing that grief. But it wouldn't necessarily be, you know, it could be accurate, but in other instances, this is what it's like. Where you know, certainly, if it had been in Lethal Weapon 1, it might have been closer to that.
Yeah,
you know, it's still incredibly raw. Whereas here, it's almost like it being inserted into the Murtaugh family has not replaced that, but has given him the ability to talk about it without it getting to that stage. You know, there's also a really nice little scene as well with him and the dog afterwards as well. I think there's so many moments in Lethal Weapon movies, particularly in this movie, where you see that from characters at a time where action stars and action movies were not all the time doing it. You know, the only other one I can really think of that dealt with that kind of, you know, the psyche of man dealing with baggage was probably Rambo.
Yeah.
You know, whereas other action movies don't really do that as such. You know, this is probably why I think Lethal Weapon is probably my favourite of the 80s sort of franchises that were, because you've got a little bit of everything. It is, you know, it's very realistic to true life, where there are going to be days where, you know, you're Danny Glover going, I'm too old for this shit. There are going to be days where you're absolutely livid with a particular situation, like Riggs would be. You know, there are going to be days where, you know, in Lethal Weapon 4, for example, one of the scenes that I love is where I can't even remember but there's a sign up that's taking the piss out of Murtaugh, and Murtaugh notices it, and Mel Gibson's like, you know, this is ridiculous. Like, come on, guys, what are you doing here? And he takes it down, and then as he turns his back, he sticks it back up.
Yeah.
And then and that following scene happens, and then the same thing happens again, and you see that, and it's that playfulness that you see, you know, that Riggs really is like a bit of a thorn in the side of Murtaugh in like an incredibly loving and friendly way, where we've all got those friends who you just know, you know, if anything embarrassing happens to you, please don't let that person know about it, because they're not going to let me live it down. And it's not done in a way where it's malicious. It's just done in a way where it's like helping you deal with that thing that embarrasses you, you know. And for me as well, I've got sort of really fond memories of Lethal Weapon 2, because this is going to sound utterly bonkers, but the fact that the villains in the piece are South African has a real nice soft spot for me, because my grandmother was South African.
Yeah, cool.
And had a not quite as thick accent as you hear in here, but every now and again there'd be a word or two that would have that South African tone to it. And I'd never heard, up to seeing Lethal Weapon 2, that depiction in any movie, really. No. And I watched Lethal Weapon 2, and it was just like, I can almost hear my nan saying some of these words, obviously not in the context of her being my nan and not a crime lord with diplomatic immunity, but just hearing that thing, it just brings back really nostalgic memories for me. And I realise that's incredibly specific, and there's probably not too many other people going.
No, and tragically, I mean, this is the extent of my contextual knowledge of apartheid in South Africa at all came purely from this film in my young life before I knew better. But yeah, so every time, you know, this informed whatever knowledge I got from school about, I always related it back to this and the bit where Danny Glover visits the consulate office and that sort of stuff. It's like, yes, that's about as much as I knew.
And it also, for me, has one of my favourite sort of one-liners in movies when you do have Arjen Rudd, played by Josh Ackland, going diplomatic immunity, and he says it in such a vaudevillain, dramatic way that is just perfect for the scene. And you see Murtaugh, and he, you know, he spins his neck around, which means he's lining up a shot, takes the shot, and he just says, "It's just been revoked."
Yeah.
I know it's corny, and I know it's utterly ridiculous. I absolutely love it. There's nothing about it.
If that were you, though, wouldn't you have said that before you shot him in the head? Because who's he saying it to? I know he's saying it to himself, but I would have said it before, so he could have. That he wasn't running off anywhere, was he? That guy is not formidable in that way.
It's very.
I would have said it. And just giving him a moment to realise that he's screwed.
Maybe a rewrite of that scene is he does that, and then Riggs pops up behind saying, "Who are you talking to, Rog? He's dead now." I just absolutely love that, and I know people probably do have a problem with it. It is utterly ridiculous. It is, so far fetched and but there's just something about that. The way that Josh Ackland says diplomatic immunity is just,
it's kind of the law that if South Africa comes up or something to do with anything South African I did it the other day. I did it within the week. Nothing to do with it doing this podcast, but I think Ella, my daughter, who's 7, kind of mispronounced something or could have said something in a vaguely South African accent, and we're all laughing. And I just said diplomatic. You've just got to. It's like the law, and you must say it.
he's got for a villain with an accent which could get a little bit ropey, because it is a difficult accent to do as well. It's not it's not an easy accent. He's also got another great line where. It's just in the scene where they've shot up the lovely apartment, in the mountain, in the Beverly Hills or wherever it is, and he says, "You could not even give me a parking ticket."
That's it. Yeah.
And then he finishes off by saying, "Who is the dickhead now?" It is, just I get such a great line. I use that phrase an awful lot, and I realise it may be out of context for you and our listeners, but there's an SNL sketch where Bill Hader does an impression of the dude from MASH, Alan Alda.
Yes.
And the sketch is Alan Alda and a load of other people auditioning for movies, and it's him auditioning for the role of Biff in Back to the Future.
Yeah.
And he does, and I'm not going to attempt the impression, but he essentially he goes, "Why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?" And then stops and goes, you know what? That is a great line. And every time I say that is a great line, it's directly referencing that. So if you haven't seen that, check those out because they are really funny as well.
Oh, Alan Alda's brilliant in Crimes and Misdemeanors as the most arrogant filmmaker you've ever seen in your life. He's hilarious. He's the most Alan Alda thing. And also, I forgot to mention when we did the 12 Angry Men pod, Alan Alda for juror number 8.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely. Absolutely. Great idea.
Yeah. Shall I told you via text earlier that I had a quite tragic, emotional, long repressed memory to do with this film that I've never told anyone before. And I feel this might be the right space to reveal this.
Only if you feel comfortable, my man.
Okay, so when I was in junior school no less, I in the playground for a few days or so, every now and then, I pretended that I had the same shoulder injury as Martin Riggs in this film, and that I could dislocate my shoulder at will, and then I would pretend to be cool and gather people round, and I would go up to a wall and smash my shoulder back into place to look cool.
We've all done those things. We have all done those things where we do something.
I've never told anyone that.
Like, honestly, that
what the hell is?
To be fair, that would have worked on me. I'd have been like, "That's pretty darn cool." That I mean, as we're in the interest of sharing stuff, I was in primary school once, and this has got nothing to do with lethal weapon.
Most people were.
Yeah. I mean, I heard that as I said it. I was in primary school once. Ooh, all right. No need to show off. And my middle name is David, and it's my dad's name. And for some reason, I remember you get those points where you start questioning your identity. And I went into school one day and realised I don't feel like a Ryan. I don't think that suits me. So I went round the whole day when everybody said, hi Ryan, or whatever, I would then go, call me Dave. Like that. And I said it in such a way that was trying to be cool, but in a way where I know that if anybody who did listen to me went, huh? What are you talking about? And it didn't work. Nobody called me Dave. And I suppose that's quite lucky but yeah, as I say, we've all done those things to, try and make us look cool.
Yeah.
And I actually think that is pretty cool because that's,
Well, if I've got a party trick at all, it's that I can stick my shoulder blades out a very long way, which looks a bit weird and freaky. So I kind of incorporated that into it. And just all of a sudden I'll show up and like lock myself and stick my shoulder blade again. I was like, oh man, my dislocated shoulder again. Yeah. I'm going to have to knock it back into place. I didn't explain that, I never said, just like Martin Riggs in Lethal Weapon 2, yo. Nothing like that.
Almost like it's almost like if you had have done that.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like when you do an impression of somebody and you have to say who the impression is, usually is an indicator it's not a great impression. But
looking at it now, I realise it is just a bit of a clumsy setup for later, isn't it? The whole shoulder thing.
I was thinking that. And
although he does do it he does it in Lethal Weapon 3 or 4, doesn't he?
It becomes a long-running thing, doesn't it? Yeah, it feels that when you're first watching it in that early scene, you're not thinking, how is this going to come into it later on? You are just thinking this is I like that scene in isolation because I feel like it feels like a realistic place where this is probably what cops would be doing in the office when they've got a bit of downtime. The taxpayer may not be too happy about it, but that's probably what they do to pass the time when they're waiting for the next call out or whatever it may be. I was thinking when we get to that stage later on where you see him put in the straitjacket and chucked into the water, I was thinking, well, it is a bit clumsy that, we've got that, foreshadowing.
Yeah.
But then on the same breath, if you hadn't had that, it's not as if we really think that Riggs is going to die here.
No, exactly, yeah.
And so I'm sort of in two minds. I agree it is quite clumsy, but I'm also in the point of going, but I suppose it does detract a way. We know he's going to get out of it because he's shown us he can do that.
Yeah.
But without it, it's not as if we're questioning whether or not he's going to make it out alive. We know he's going to make it out alive. And if he didn't make it out alive, that would be, biggest shocks in movie history because,
Well, he wasn't supposed to make it out of this film alive. They were going to kill him off, weren't they? He was supposed to die at the end of this, Riggs.
I did not know that.
Yeah, but no, they probably...
I'm so glad they didn't.
Yeah.
So glad they didn't. As much as we've said,
or at least I think it was Shane Black's intention that he died, but Shane Black didn't... I can't remember why he didn't stick on to write the full script for this. I don't know if they wanted to go in a different direction that he didn't really want to do. Of course, at this time, he was writing... Well, no, a little bit after this, actually. He was Last Boy Scout.
Yeah.
It's another one. When I did my MA on film, I did this paper called White Hunter, Black Buddy, which I thought was a very cool spin on that Clint Eastwood title, White Hunter, Black Heart. I was quite proud of that. It was just about the history of these sorts of films and, the black character being their helper for the white character's journey and that sort of stuff. And Shane Black was and his films was pretty central to all of this. Yeah, this was the era for it. You had Running Scared, you had 48 Hours and another 48 Hours, Last Boy Scout. And there was this black-white dynamic and often, yes, it's an interesting era for these sorts of films. They're all great and, yeah.
And I think famously, you mentioned Shane Black and writing Last Boy Scout, but I think, and you'll probably be able to correct me, but Die Hard with a Vengeance started out life as a Lethal Weapon sequel, didn't it? Or was it the other way around? Lethal Weapon 3 started out as a Die Hard sequel. I think it was Die Hard with a Vengeance started like they were writing it as a Lethal Weapon sequel, and then they realised it wasn't.
Well,
for whatever reason it wasn't going to work, and then they adapted it to be a Die Hard sequel. I think
something like that. I mean, one of them was Die Hard 2 was going to be a Commando sequel. Yeah, there's all sorts and everything. My favourite DVD commentary of all time is Die Hard with a Vengeance, because you got John McTiernan, who's brilliant on commentaries. The Predator one, the original Die Hard one, he's brilliant. He used to watch foreign films without subtitles to get an idea of kind of cinematography and that sort of stuff. And the Die Hard commentary is brilliant. John McTiernan is such good value. But the Die Hard with the Vengeance one is hilarious because John McTiernan is watching it. And it's got John McTiernan and Jonathan Hensley, the writer, who's now married to Gail Ann Hurd. But they're recorded separately, so they're not in the same room. And it's really funny because Hensley is talking about how amazing all these different scenes are, and John McClane is almost kind of cringing at some of the effects and some of the things that he would have done differently. It's just really, really funny. But no, it started as Die Hard with a Vengeance started as a script called Simon Says, which was unrelated to anything, and then got turned, into a Die Hard film. But yeah, there are all kinds of ins and outs with stories, this was going to be this, that was going to be that sort of thing. So yeah.
Totally unrelated from what we were just saying about. It was something I picked out yesterday, having watched. Because what I like to do, I like how I prepare for an episode of the pod is if there's a bunch of movies in a franchise and we're doing one of those, is I like to start with the one.
I love the way Joe Pesci runs with that gun. It's so funny.
Joe Pesci is just hilarious in this movie.
It's astonishing that in the stretch of a year or two, he did this, Home Alone, and Goodfellas.
Yeah,
it's bizarre that it's all the same person.
Yeah, and really, really shows his range as an actor.
My cousin Vinny must have been around this time as well, which I still haven't seen.
I think I was.
But sorry, anyway, I digress.
Yeah. But yeah, how I like to prepare is I try to watch them in order other than the one that we're doing. So the one that we're focusing on is the last one I see.
Yeah.
So I ended up watching, I think on Tuesday I watched Lethal Weapon 1, then I jumped to Lethal Weapon 3 and 4 yesterday, and then finally Lethal Weapon 2. And one thing I noticed, and I don't even really know why I'm bringing it up other than I find it really interesting, is that Lethal Weapon 1, Mel Gibson's hair is like proper 80s big. Lethal Weapon 2, it's not quite as big. Not quite as big because it's 1989. We're getting into the 90s where that style perhaps is going out of fashion.
Yeah.
Lethal Weapon 3...
It's back again, isn't it?
It's bigger.
Yeah.
It's bigger than Lethal Weapon 1. And then Lethal Weapon 4, they go, no, let's just cut it off. And I find that transition and that... Like, I want to see side-by-sides of his hair and how big it gets. Because there is an element where I look at Mel Gibson's hair, particularly in Lethal Weapon 1, and go, that is some cool-ass hair. And I, if I could rock that type of hair today, I probably would. I would not care. Because that is... Like, I was watching Lethal Weapon 1, and when I watched this, and I'm going and looking at Mel Gibson and going, that guy is movie star, like, personified for me.
Yeah.
Like, you know... Something about Mel Gibson in these movies that is just so charismatic, so endlessly watchable, and hilarious, funny, heartbreaking in equal measure. And not many movies.
I always thought that guy on the left was Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
It is not Ed Leslie, Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Yeah, it looks a lot like him.
I totally...
See? You know what I mean? You're proud of that.
Put it this way, if Hulk Hogan was Riggs, that would have been Brutus the Barber Beefcake, and probably one of the others would have been Brian Knobbs from the Nasty Boys.
Oh, yeah.
So some deep cuts there for you wrestling fans. But yeah, it does look a little bit like Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
We just had
if he turns around, he's got a massive pair of shears in his pocket.
We'd obviously just seen the surfboard incident. I think I really love. There's something about the way it's edited. It's great. It's a very kind of Rube Goldberg sort of setup. This sets off that sets off this. It's just a lovely piece of work. Yeah. Now we're in the scene where they're confronting the South Africans for the first time.
Yeah.
And
I think it's a really good narrative, like, deviation.
Yeah.
Like, at this point, you think Well, you don't think because you know what movies are like and you're only, so far through the movie, 40 minutes through the movie, so you know it's not going to be quite as simple. But you're just trying to think, well, how are they going to get out of this then? You've got Riggs and Murtaugh are there. They've got, they've got essentially got them with their pants down, and then all of a sudden they just provide their diplomatic credentials and tides turn. And you can see in Riggs's face, he's like, shit, they've got me there. I can't do anything.
I do love that. He plays it really well, man. The guy who plays the second in command. But when he hears Riggs' name, I kept an eye on him during that moment. And it's a really good little performance. Like, oh, this is the guy.
Yeah, because I totally had forgotten about that. That plot point towards the end, because I hadn't watched Lethal Weapon 2 in quite some time. For some reason, I always go to Lethal Weapon 1. And this, doing this podcast episode will change that. I probably will return to Lethal Weapon 2 a lot more. But I kind of forgot. And so it's almost like I was watching it again for the first time. And seeing his recollection, and I'm going, why does he recognise that name?
Yeah.
I haven't met up to this point other than... And you start questioning what's going on, how is this going to fit into it? And obviously the reveal, as I said earlier, brings out that, that sort of animalistic and predatory side of Mel Gibson, where he's like, I'm now hunting this guy because... and we have Patsy Kensit as well, which I think we spoke about on our Superman episode.
We did indeed, yeah.
For me, will always be that woman from Emmerdale, because that's the first thing I saw her in.
Not for me, son.
Exactly. How I always fascinated by that. One of the ones that me and Jim always have is in Frasier's wife, whose name is now completely escaping me.
Oh,
Meredith. Yeah. For Jim, that is Frasier's wife. For me, it is the mum from Jumanji.
Gotcha.
And it's just whatever you see that person in first is usually what they're remembered for, regardless of how successful that role is or how big that role is. As can be seen with this, whereby, I think Patsy Kensit would probably much prefer to be remembered as, the romantic lead from Lethal Weapon 2 rather than that woman from Emmerdale.
Yeah.
But
I think it's very interesting also that for the first time you see a lot of the other police officers, and they're all played by very solid character actors who had done bigger roles before. So you got Jeanette Goldstein, you got Dean Norris, you got Grandel Bush, who's one of the Johnsons from Die Hard, and he's in License to Kill. You got Nestor Serrano, who would go on to be in Bad Boys. And, and it's just, it's interesting they got them. They're there to make a real impression because, of course, they all get killed. They all get wiped out, and it makes it a kind of good fuel for the finale. But yeah, it's just interesting that all these actors who have bigger speaking parts are all playing these supporting characters who get killed off. There's an interesting who's who of kind of 80s and 90s actors.
Yeah, and they really do sort of bring those office scenes and those characters to life, because it could have been a cast of unknowns which would have been perfectly serviceable. But because you've recognised these faces, almost like what we were saying earlier, where this movie, it doesn't need to do any of the setting up because, it's the second in the franchise. Because we've seen those faces before, we automatically place more weight on their characters because of that. And it certainly doesn't at any point feel like it's obvious they're going to get killed off. Probably because of that as well. It makes it, a little bit more shocking that they do get killed off, and in such, I wouldn't even say throwaway is not the right word, but in such definitive fashion where, particularly Jeanette Goldstein's, which is,
scene.
I
think what you were saying earlier, sorry, as well, about, the tree of condoms, again, any other director might have ended with Murtaugh just being really pissed off, but the fact that he laughed it off, I think, is really just exemplifies what this film is all about, really.
Yeah.
And he can take a joke and he can have a laugh, and that's it.
And again, we've all been in those situations again where we've had those situations where, that joke is really close to the bone, and I shouldn't be laughing at this, but that is genius. That is really funny, and I think it's a perfect example here of, that workplace camaraderie that you have, particularly in probably a heightened environment with something like police work, which comes across really, obviously comes across really, really strongly between Riggs and Murtaugh, but as you say, bringing in those other characters to flesh out that environment. One of the, which does get a little bit far-fetched towards the latter stage of the franchise. One of the relationships I find really funny is the relationship between Riggs and the psychiatrist in the police station, where every time she's trying to sort of like, it's particularly in the first one, she's saying he's dangerous, he's a loose cannon, he needs support, and he needs to be pulled from active duty. And the captain is like, particularly at that time, mental health wasn't really a thing, it wasn't necessarily widely regarded, particularly in men at that, in that time frame. And seeing that development of it get sort of even more ridiculous. So I think by number 4, he, one of the things that Riggs does quite often is he start having a fake argument or conversation out loud with everybody in the middle of a public place. And one of the things he says, "Look, I can't go out of you. I'm happily married," and you see that flip from Riggs starts out as, for lack of a better term, in inverted commas, the crazy character. And we see that flip where now the psychiatrist is the crazy character in the eyes of everybody else in the office. I find, those are sort of tiny little things that are abundant throughout all of these movies, where you may, in most other franchises, have one or two, whereas here you've got so many of them which just add layers and layers and layers on to these characters. And obviously, naturally, when you have, 3, 4, 5 movies in a franchise, there's more opportunity to do that. But there are so many other franchises that by the third one, even to some extent by the second one, it's diminishing returns, and they've lost whatever they captured in the first movie, and it's very much, it's more obvious they're doing this as a cash cow, as opposed to, there is more to tell in this story. One for me that I think is quite evident of that is Predator, where I really like 2. It is noticeably different.
Yes.
By the time you get to, what's the next one after Predator? Predators. By the time you get, okay, there's a big gap there. It's like,
hell of a gap. Yeah.
This isn't great, and very much diminishing returns for a lot of that. The only one I would say in recent memory that has been a good addition that I've seen is Prey.
Correct.
And that's because it went, we need to do something completely different.
I would, those are, that's a rare example of a film nowadays that I'd quite happily rewatch quite a lot. Yeah, and I love Predator 2. I remember getting it from Woolworths in Littlehampton when I was 10 or 11.
Yeah.
And my mum was desperate for me to, because my mum had to buy it for me, of course. And she was desperate to get Home Alone because she felt it was obviously more appropriate. But I was like, no, Predator 2. She bought it when I was 10 years old. God, if she'd seen what was in that film, she would have dared.
I love that style of parenting. My parents done it as well. And you can have that. Yeah. For me, it was wrestling DVDs. And I was like, which ones you want? I'll go for that one. And it's like, great. This is Royal Rumble 2000, which has a street fight in it. That's definitely not acceptable for a 12-year-old kid, but it was all out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. I got all of those from my sister over the years, and recently found out that she'd got rid of them eventually because they're all on Netflix now and all that sort of stuff. I was like, I would have had them. I would have had all of them. Yeah, I love those Royal Rumbles.
Yeah, the things we do when we're younger with particularly physical media.
Oh, man. Yeah, don't get me started. And no, don't get me started. I won't.
Yeah. And one thing I think is actually really interesting because it somehow succeeded, but we introduce a third wheel to a buddy cop movie that is recurring character, and one that somehow doesn't manage to dilute what we love about Lethal Weapon with Joe Pesci, probably because of as we said earlier, the caliber of Joe Pesci.
Yeah.
By Lethal Weapon 4, we've got Chris Rock in a similar role.
Yeah.
Doing a very similar thing. And there is
and still Joe Pesci as well.
Yeah. And there is that I find it really funny, that scene where you start to see Joe Pesci and Chris Rock bond over their love of moaning about stuff.
Yeah.
I love that scene.
It does look generally like Chris Rock doesn't actually know what to do with himself in that scene. Good Joe Pesci's so good.
But admittedly, by that point in Lethal Weapon 4, that is where it is getting to the point where you are thinking, this is now getting, how many more sort of characters can we add into this situation without it being, a distraction? As much as I have fond memories of Lethal Weapon 4. But we are now just coming up to that scene that we mentioned earlier, the toilet scene. Which,
it's a masterclass. It really is. Well, they're just on an acting level. There's
so many great moments.
Their generosity towards each other as performers is just fantastic. It really is.
Yeah,
it's great.
And also, it's such a crazy idea to have such a scene that has virtually no action other than the climax.
Yeah.
It's not an action scene in an action movie.
No. This is about the time to have another one of those scenes, isn't it? But
they don't do that.
Yeah.
You're thinking, right, let's see a car drive through an office building like you get in Lethal Weapon 4. Let's see an massive explosion. And we do get to that. And unfortunately, it always seems to be Murtaugh's house that gets... in the first movie, his front lawn gets absolutely covered in water from the fire hydrant, and in the second movie, he's building himself a lovely garage with a workman who seems to be working quite late hours, which credit to him, and it all gets ruined by this massive explosion. In 4, he gets his house set on fire, and at this point, I'm thinking maybe just move. It might be that this home that you've built is unfortunately a bit of a bad omen by this point. But to put this scene in here where it does automatically slow the pace right down, and ordinarily, I've said it numerous times with movies that the structure of a movie or the way it's edited or shot completely changes the pace of a movie and ruins it. Whereas here, it's going pretty much not quite full speed, but we're almost getting to a sprint, and you think it's just going to start really getting into that that top gear, and then all of a sudden it slows it right down and goes right back to a really, really heartfelt few moments or scenes with two characters who are both of them thinking this could be it. And ordinarily, I know that I'd be saying, and it sounds so contradictory for me to say that this is a perfect time to do it in this movie, because I've said it numerous times about it not working in other movies. But I think it's just a credit to Richard Donner as a filmmaker. Who we know is a great filmmaker, absolutely great. Obviously, our previous episode that we covered from Richard Donner's back catalogue was Superman, and every movie I watch of Richard Donner's, I don't think I've seen a bad movie.
Turns out he'd done quite a few though, because you did The Omen as well, didn't you?
He did do The Omen, and it's
you've done quite a few of the pods on him as it turns out.
It wasn't a conscious thing of going It's exactly, just you go The Omen, great movie. We're doing a horror movie, great British horror movie. Oh, it's Richard Donner. Right, we need a superhero movie. Right, let's do the first. Oh, it's Richard Donner. Oh, we need a buddy cop movie. Oh, it's Richard Donner. And it's such a testament to his ability that he has a movie in so many different genres. I was saying this very similarly with our Stand By Me episode. Rob Reiner was another one where he's got 5 or 6 movies that are all fantastic, top-tier movies in different genres. Usually you get I'm thinking John McTiernan, great action movie director. haven't seen him do a horror movie. That's great. You know, you get directors and you get actors who are very, very good in a particular field. Wes Craven, great horror movie director, but I've never seen him do an out.
Well, he did a Meryl Streep movie. One, not One from the Heart. He did a Meryl Streep movie and Meryl Streep is a music teacher, and that is one of the few anomalies in his. And it's one he wanted to do. That's got to bug me now. I'm gonna have to look it up. But yeah, that was bizarre.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have thought. But yeah, you're right. I mean, but you don't consider them kind of journeyman directors, do you? Either it's not like they're like just doing whatever.
Yeah, they're not ones that are just, we need a name to direct this movie we've already written. Who can be placed into it?
Donner and Reiner, their films have heart. They're just big-hearted kind of American directors, basically. Yeah, when a couple of weeks ago, they're doing Rob Reiner re-releases now at the moment, aren't they? And I went a couple of weeks ago to see Few Good Men. And that's just cemented how much I love that film. I think it might be. It's in my top 10.
That movie is. I don't know if it's the movie that's based on the play or the play.
It's based on the Aaron Sorkin play. Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was. I've got the play, and obviously it's got that iconic. You can't handle the truth line. And that's what everybody remembers. But if you go back and watch that, the speech afterwards, is absolutely sensational.
Oh yeah,
it is so good.
Yeah,
and is word for word what it is in the play, and is, as somebody who's been on stage and has done monologues, it is such a difficult speech. And
Ron Perlman played that character on stage. I think
that would be really interesting to see.
It was great. We were watching it, and there's that bit where throughout it, you're thinking, why is Tom Cruise looking at all the clothes in his wardrobe? And then at the end, he says, just before the big speech, I'm wondering why Willie Santiago wasn't packed because to leave the base the following morning. And everyone in the audience was like, there was a little kind of hush, a sort of, oh yeah, why wasn't he packed? If he was so desperate to leave this place, why isn't he packed, ready to go for the following morning? And it's just wonderful. It's like, oh yeah, it was just magical, and it just looks so gorgeous. And Tom Cruise is great, and they're all great. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's a great film. It's one of those films where it's on TV. And I happen to be flicking round. Not that you do that much anymore, but
I mean,
but if it's on. That's it. I'm not changing the channel because you're just getting everyone at the peak of their powers. Yeah, it's a kind of a lost art now. The kind of the courtroom thriller. Yeah,
yeah. And I, as I said in our 12 Angry Men episode, which is available now, I don't think there's enough legal dramas.
No.
That
a lot of it's kind of gone to TV now.
Yeah,
it's doing well on TV. You're what's it called? Not LA Law. Oh, what do you call it? Law and Order. Law and Order and all those sorts of things. Because that's the structure of those sorts of shows. It makes sense. For kind of weekly kind of viewing.
Does sort of lend itself to longer term storytelling.
But no, you don't get A Time to Kill now anymore, or kind of
Runaway Jury,
and Justice for All, or anything like that really anymore, which is a shame because those films just don't really get made much anymore. It's either, now more than ever, if it was going to be in a cinema at all, it's going to be a big, huge kind of special effects blockbuster that's rated 12A, or it's going to be a horror movie. Because horror movies always do well.
They always do well, and they're usually quite cheap to make.
Yeah, exactly, and they get a lot of money back. So, intriguing.
So the budget for this movie was, by 1989 standards, relatively high. Not the biggest of the year. That probably would have been Tim Burton's Batman. But we're looking at a production budget of about $28 million, which is equivalent today of about $70 to $75 million. And its opening weekend, it made about $20 million. So people were clamoring to go and see the sequel to this. And domestically, it made a gross profit of $147 million. So incredibly successful. And worldwide, you can add on another 60 to 80 million with $227 million. So firmly in we're going to get a third iteration territory. And, that's part and parcel of Hollywood filmmaking. But this was incredibly successful. Coming in a year where you've got things like Tim Burton's Batman, where that's probably going to be the movie of the year in terms of the highest gross. This is a really, really, really strong, viable contender for that, because 227 million worldwide in 1987 is about $600,000 today. So great return, which it's difficult sometimes to separate the money side of Hollywood from the artistic side of Hollywood. And sometimes there are movies that just completely flop and are seen as not successful and don't get sequels, and vice versa. There are films that are not so good but are incredibly successful and get sequels, and this is in a very rare category of being successful at the box office, artistically successful, and not being in a position where by the time you get to 4 nobody really wants it. Obviously, I think we're in a position where I think they were certainly, I don't know how close, but quite close to a 5th iteration prior to Richard Donner's passing.
Well, I think there's still kind of
it's still in production, I think, with Mel Gibson directing.
Yeah. Look how we finish each other's sandwiches.
Yeah.
I love us.
Yeah, we are. We are. I was about to say we are Riggs and Murtaugh, but that opens up some questionable.
In both cases,
yeah. But yeah, so I feel as though a 5th one would be. I'd love to see it, but also
it would be like the 5th Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it's I was doing the maths yesterday, thinking, of course, they've got that in production. It's not coming out this year. It's probably not going to come out next year. So you're probably looking at 2028. It's 30 years since the last one.
Oh God, that's
1998
creepy.
Is when Lethal Weapon 4 came out,
and
people would probably argue that the difference from 93 when the third one came out to 98 was a bit of a jump at a time where that was a big chunk of time. Nowadays we're used to 10, 15, even 20 years, breaks between movies, but 30 years is probably, if it does come out, if it does get made, is probably going to be, the difference between Lethal Weapon 4 and a possible Lethal Weapon 5. And I think it probably, there would be something that would work, although I don't know if I'm too old for this shit might be a bit like, you were too old for this shit in 98, Danny. Might be a bit too ham-fisted.
Well, it might be the case that, they're both captains or chiefs.
Because they do get made captains in Lethal Weapon 4.
And there's a new pair, a new kind of set of cops. But I don't know, where's that going to sit? I mean, we've still got the Bad Boys movies, and they're doing all right. Is it going to appeal to people in their 60s and 70s? That might not be enough. I mean, there was the Lethal Weapon TV series, but that didn't last very long. I mean, are people going to see a film because Danny Glover's in it now? Are people going to see a film because there's Mel Gibson anymore?
Yeah, obviously.
But he's still got a lot of sway as a director. He's quite highly regarded as a director. Although he did that really weird, that Mark Wahlberg movie recently, the one, The Plane.
Yes.
Which was all right, but it was like, that's bizarre.
But I've seen the trailer and just thought, what the hell have I just watched?
Yeah. It's like nobody remembers that. at all anymore.
No.
So I don't know. I think there would be a lot of goodwill and kind of nostalgia involved in a Lethal Weapon 5. Yeah, it's going to be.
I think unfortunately the boat has probably sailed.
Yeah.
I think, as you say, it will.
I mean, I'd go and see it. Of course, I'd go and see it.
I mean, we say all of this.
Yeah.
That it's taking our money. You know?
Yeah.
There's no which way around it.
Yeah.
We're saying, oh, do we need a Lethal Weapon 5? And we'll be the first ones in the front row with our, family-sized bucket of popcorn.
Yeah. And it would either be, it would probably act as both a bow to wrap up their tenure as the characters, and a launching pad for perhaps a new pair of cops or something like that.
That would be what my fear
or
would be.
It'll be their daughters as the cops or
know,
something like that. I don't know, it'll have to try and appeal to a new audience and an older audience. Like, that's why they had Chris Rock in Lethal Weapon 4, and what they tried to do maybe with No Time to Die, and yes, it ticks all the boxes for people who've been watching since the 1960s, but it's got a lot of new blood in it as well. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I thought of, and you've just covered it, is linking back to the Indiana Jones. What they've done. I don't. Dial of Destiny, I think, is all right.
I think it's all right.
Kingdom of the Crystal Skulls. And what they try to do that where they bring in Shia LaBeouf to be the new Indiana Jones, essentially. I don't want to see a young version of Riggs and Murtaugh. Like, I don't want to see a new version of that. And if you're going to present that, then we're going into remake territory. Like, if that's what you're going to do, that's what you're going to do. There is one movie actually that is quite closely linked to this that I've not seen, that I was recommended to watch when we filmed, me and Jim, our Lethal Weapon episode, and that is the comedy spoof, I suppose you'd call it, Loaded Weapon, with Emilio Estevez and Samuel L. Jackson. I've not seen it.
Oh shit, man, you're in for it. It's brilliant.
I
well, it's not
placed an order for it yesterday.
Yeah,
because I was like, when somebody recommends a movie to you, you go, yes, that sounds great, and then you just never get around to it. I was like,
I've still got it on DVD.
Yeah.
So if you
I think it's one of those ones that is only on DVD, on VHS, Don't know if you can get it on Blu-ray, and if you can, then it's probably going to be an imported copy.
Yeah, well, it's like Repossessed, which you've got to see with Leslie Nielsen. I watched that so many times as a kid. I saw it way before I saw The Exorcist as well, and I still got it. But
it's like a scary movie. It's like a scary movie in Scream for Hannah, where we're watching Scream and she's just laughing. I'm like, it's not a scary movie, okay?
There's a brilliant bit in Loaded Weapon with F. Murray Abraham as basically Hannibal Lecter.
I think I've seen it. I think I've seen the clip of it. Yeah.
He's in that kind of straitjacket attached to that wheelie thing, and he falls over. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Loaded Weapon's great.
Another thing we haven't really mentioned, and I think it's probably more a compliment to the Los Angeles setting and location, but there are so many picturesque scenes in all of these movies.
I'd love to live on that beach in that trailer.
Yeah,
I really would.
We're just at the moment where he's on his date with Patsy Kensit and looking out at that water, crystal blue water, those lovely, large.
Oh, that street lamp. It's great.
I've never noticed that before. That does seem really out of place.
Yeah,
almost like Riggs is the one who's put it there. Like, I need some lighting out here. Let's get a street lamp.
Do you watch Seinfeld?
I don't.
Oh man, well, never mind. But it would take too much explaining. But never mind.
But yeah, there's so many picturesque things there. Obviously, we've had the chase through the canyons. We've had that that picturesque apartment overlooking a very similar location,
which they purpose built for this film.
Yeah, it reminds me very much of any fans of the Grand Theft Auto series, the games. There's a mission in the I was about to say the newest one, but it's about 10 years old now, Grand Theft Auto 5, where there's a very similar looking building that it extends out from a mounting, and you see all of the support pillars. And one of the things you've got to do is blow the support pillars out, so the whole building goes into the sea, basically.
I always thought that was Danny Glover. Because you never hear, he looks identical to Danny Glover, and you never hear his character name.
Yeah.
And then he gets shot, and when I was a kid, I really thought it was Danny Glover, because this is the start of the execution of all of the other characters, and you hadn't heard his character name, and it went over my head. And he's upside down, so you can't kind of tell.
And it's one of those things where it's so...
I still never figure out how they did this. This looks so... Well, that's clearly a stunt. But look, I mean...
Yeah.
That's...
It must... we're talking about the Jeanette Goldstein death here, where she, as soon as she prepares her jump off of the diving board, a massive explosion. I think how it looks to me, probably there is somebody who knows how it's done, so can correct us. So do let us know. Send your knowledge to our email address. But it looks as though they've got some sort of explosive, like pressurized thing in the water to create that, that burst of water coming out from the swimming pool. And then probably as she's done that, she's made the jump and they've cut it really well so you don't see it. And then there's that second or two, a little bit like what they say to Riggs and Murtaugh in the bathroom scene. You've got a second or two before it explodes. Then you get the flames that come from the other side of the diving board. So obviously there's no or less danger. Obviously there's never no danger when you're doing stunts. But I think what makes these deaths really powerful is the fact they happen sequentially.
Yeah,
you see, and they're interspersed, as you were just about to say. Sorry to cut you off. With the lovemaking scenes from Patsy
that's what I say.
and Mel Gibson.
They're cross cut with that. It makes them feel like I mean, if it was done a different way, then
I know, and I think on the face of it, that's a great way of editing a movie anyway.
Yeah,
but for Lethal Weapon, I think that's even more powerful because it feeds into that mindset that Riggs has that he should have been there.
Yeah.
That's how he feels with his wife. He should have been the one driving.
Yeah.
With these deaths of his friends, he should have been there, rather than, getting his end away, as we see here.
I like that bit with the captain just before where they're panicking because everyone's being killed off. He just gives that cop just a tap around the face, doesn't he? Just like hold your head up. We're going to get through this sort of thing. And that's
actually, for me, I think it's probably for most people, the first time we've seen the captain and we see why he's in that job. And I don't mean that, he seems out of place anywhere else, but every other scene we've seen of him, he's going... It's almost like he's saying, God, Riggs and Murtaugh, the bane of my life. Like every scene is like, for Christ's sake, have I got to deal with these two again? Whereas here, it's like, this is why he gets paid. This is why he's a captain. This is why he's good at his job, because he gives people the motivation in difficult times to be able to do what they need to do, And obviously that is Richard Donner's cousin, I think we found out when we were doing the Superman episode, because he's in that as well.
Similar to Joey Pantoliano in Bad Boys as the captain. He kind of warms up as the films go on. You see the caring side as well as the boisterous side.
Yeah, and he's a great actor as well, isn't he, Joey Pantoliano? His turn in The Sopranos is awesome. He's pretty much great in anything. Pretty much great in anything. And sort of by this point in the movie, we've had quite a few emotional big moments, and we still haven't really got to what I would say is the biggest one, where it's the reveal that the reason why Riggs's wife died was at the hands of the South Africans. And actually, it's a very... We say a lot of the time when we particularly of action movies, we say about raising the stakes, and a lot of the time movies try to do that and fail miserably. This movie keeps doing it. Yeah, it's already come from a movie in Lethal Weapon 1 that has got pretty high stakes.
Yeah,
and then it comes along and it does it again. It does it again. And it does it again. We've got 3 sort of quite big moments where I think the first sort of like emotional pull moment, as we said earlier, is that scene with Trisha and Riggs in the kitchen. We've got the one where, we see Riggs and Murtaugh contemplate, are they going to get out of this? And then it does another one with the deaths of all of their comrades. And we're still not done with it. And
there's still so much more to come in this movie.
There's still so much more, and it doesn't feel like overkill.
No.
And I think sometimes movies, there is no rhyme or reason as to why it necessarily works. Somebody who studied movies and teaches movies and teaches film, you'll probably be much more equipped to answer why this is. But for me, sometimes there isn't no tangible reason other than in the context of what you're watching, it just works, and time and time again, I've had we've watched movies where, the tone has been all off, particularly the Marvel movies. There was a point where we're supposed to be, really care about these characters and the peril that they're in, and they're laughing and joking the next minute, and it's like, well, why do I care then? Whereas here, this is pretty much that movie, but I'm not complaining about it, and it just works here. We get lots of foreshadowing throughout the whole movie, where we've just seen Danny Glover kill one of the henchmen with a nail gun.
Yeah.
That's foreshadowed earlier with the workmen saying, whoa, be careful with that thing. It's not a toy. And at that point, we're probably thinking, is that going to come up and, is that going to be something later on?
Yep.
And it absolutely is. And it absolutely delivers on everything you want it to be. A nail gun to the head.
Well, there's so many punchy air moments in this, and it's just unashamed to do that. I mean, these are characters that you grow to really love and really care about. And it's just unashamedly and expertly kind of nails those beats, basically.
Yeah.
Pun intended. And there's no, maybe it's a bit of a stretch or a bit of a coincidence that, one of these henchmen should be the person who killed Riggs' wife. But, it makes him getting flattened by that big kind of container later in the film even more satisfying, sort of thing. I've got 10 minutes left, by the way.
And I was wondering, it's difficult when you've not lived in that time for me to know that, we always say with sequels, usually it's I presume this is a tagline from a movie and I can't think what it is, but you get that general sort of approach to sequels where it's bigger, it's badder, it's better, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering where that comes from. And now I'm not saying, again, much like the buddy cop genre in itself, this probably wasn't the first movie to attempt to do that. Certainly the movie for me that says it can be done. The other one I'm thinking of is Terminator 2. That definitely raises the stakes, adds a lot more, bigger, badder, better.
Yeah.
And
this is the challenge for sequels. You've got to recapture what made it a hit in the first place, but also not completely replicate it. So invariably that means more stunts, more action, and it's going to be more contrived. And, in the case of kind of superhero films, you end up with Spider-Man 3 where you've literally got 3 villains, and it's too much. Yeah. And then you reset. And, this was before, these films in the 80s, this is before, this is when the big franchises, which are still having an impact now, started up. You had your, RoboCop's been sequelized and remade. Alien and Aliens has been sequelized and remade. Yeah. Die Hard, plenty of sequels never remade, but there was going to be, and perhaps there is going to be still this kind of origin series of Die Hard, so this is when it all kind of started to come up. And now the method is, right, we go through it and then we do 2 or 3 films and then we reset. New actors, new stories, new vibe. The Spider-Man films are a perfect example of that. So that's the kind of loop that we're trapped in now. And everything now, of course, is geared towards a much younger audience. So, a film like Lethal Weapon 2, wouldn't really be on the cards nowadays.
No.
It would probably be, I don't know. There are some. I mean, there's been some great action movies recently. I mean, but I'm thinking, I don't know, something like Extraction, for example. Straight to, it's got a big star. It's got is it Extraction with Chris Hemsworth?
Yeah.
Straight to Netflix. Very, very violent. And that recent Alan Ritchie film.
Yeah, I know the one. War
Machine, something like that. Yeah, which is a really good nod. There's actually a lot of overt nods to Predator in that. It's a good movie, but straight to Netflix because you're not going to make enough money in the cinema to justify it and now everything that's big is aimed at a teenage audience or a younger audience. Every single Fast and Furious film, 12A.
Yeah.
Except for the very first one. Or maybe the first two, but they were in a different era as well. Every single MCU film is a 12A. Every Jurassic World movie, 12A. They're all 12As. So there's no space for these sorts of kind of action thrillers anymore, except on streaming. Man on Fire has just been released. That's a TV series.
And they're fewer and far between, and not many of them get sequels or franchises spurring off of that initial success or lack thereof, and I think it is no mean feat when you take a franchise like Lethal Weapon and you compare it to, say, a Die Hard, which Die Hard is a great, fantastic movie. Check out our episode on that. Die Hard 2, Die Harder, it's a noticeable drop for me.
Yeah, a lot of value. I've rewatched it. It doesn't have the lightness of touch of the original.
No, it's still enjoyable.
Yeah.
But it is noticeably a sequel.
Yeah.
Whereas you could watch Lethal Weapon 2, and other than the fact of you're like, right, who are these characters?
Yeah.
And there's no setting up. It could be the first in the franchise because of how strong it is.
Yeah.
As we said, we're going, is it Lethal Weapon 1 or is it Lethal Weapon 2? Bit like we do with Terminator, a bit like we do with Alien and Aliens, although technically I would say that's a completely different thing altogether because they're totally different genres.
Yeah.
But that brings us on quite nicely, I think, to further watching, and I think we've mentioned some of the ones that I've picked out, like Die Hard and Bad Boys and Last Boy Scout.
Last Boy Scout, I'd say so. The original 48 Hours. And again, the difference between an original and a sequel, watching 48 Hours and another 48 Hours is really exemplifies that. The second one just goes completely over the top to its detriment, really. Although I'm a big Walter Hill fan, so I kind of, I'll watch it. Running Scared is another one with Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines. That's kind of forgotten now, really.
I think one that much more in a comedy fashion, but Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
I think, those are also set in a very similar location. Well, not similar, same location.
That's another one.
Closing the name there.
Yeah, by the third one, I mean, it was set in a blinking theme park, and that was atrocious. Although the recent one, the Axel Foley one,
wasn't too bad.
I was pleasantly surprised by that.
Don't get me wrong.
But again, straight to Netflix.
Yeah.
I mean, our generation is just kind of being ignored.
Yeah.
Except through these kind of nostalgic kind of what's the word? Retro
rose
screenings
that
are coming to certain cinemas, and I think they're doing more and more of them, even in like multiplexes now. And I think they're realizing, we will go and watch A Few Good Men. If Lethal Weapon 2 was in the cinema, I'd be
100%.
there. Anything like that, any of these movies. And, the new generation via Letterboxd and that sort of stuff is beginning to catch on to these films as well, because they still feel, the films made in the 80s set the template, which is still being followed.
And one thing I think I just want to leave the episode and leave our listeners on, and I've said it a couple of times before, but they really do not make movies like this anymore, and if they do, they're not in big cinemas, as you said. They're on Netflix or they're on streaming, and often not to the same level of artistry and success. So, and I think Lethal Weapon 2 for me exemplifies what the 80s were for action movies. Obviously, this came out in 89, and it was almost like they were going, right, last year of the 80s. This came out in July of 1989, so the last summer blockbuster, window for the 80s. It's almost like they went, let's leave the 80s with a bang. And they 100% succeeded in that. I'm not saying that's what they've done, because that'd be a ridiculous thing to like. Like, the 80s are leaving us. We're going into the 90s. We need to leave the 80s with a bang. But it feels very much like, it feels like that's what they've managed to accomplish without even potentially realising it.
Yeah.
So that's been another episode. We hope you've enjoyed listening to us rattle on. If you have any questions, recommendations, or general thoughts, you can send them to buryourboneswith@gmail.com, and we will try to give you a shout out on the podcast. We have been Bury Our Bones with Cinema, the guys who dig up the films that refuse to stay buried.
And it will be a one-button job. Boom, 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 toom, toom, toom.
I have a terrible tendency to just scroll about and but if you're talking, when we're doing it, I still find it slightly distracting.
It's a bit weird, but I think it's a bit weird, but I suppose...
maybe if you listen to it back, see if it sounds... I was like, I'm going to have to stop it. You listen to it back,
It's good job I observed that well, wasn't it?